Welcome to our first Tom Talks episode of the year. Now, we've decided in 2023 to add a new element to our Tom Talk series, whereby we're not just going to focus on one particular car, or we're not going to do one of our showroom walks, which I know you all enjoy, and thank you so much for the great feedback that we receive from you. But we've decided to invite selected guests to talk with them about their passion for cars, where it all started, hopefully get to see some of their wonderful collections. And our first guest today is our very good friend, great client, Ferrari enthusiast, Ryder Cup hero, and all-round good guy, Mr Ian Poulter. Morning, Mr Poulter.
Good morning, Junior. How are you?
I'm good. And firstly, a big happy birthday.
Thank you very much. There's nobody in the world I would like to share this morning with, especially on my birthday, than Tom Hartley Jr.
Well, thank you for being our first guest on our Tom Talks series. So we hope all the viewers enjoy it. And we thought what better person to have on board than Mr Poulter himself. So thank you.
I totally agree.
But come on, where are you today then? Are you in your man cave?
Well, listen, seems as it's early in the morning and it's my birthday, I'm in my office and I'm doing what I always do best. That's having a cup of coffee in the morning.
Lovely. So can you share the view with all of our guests here?
Let's see if I can flip this around.
Because I know that's a very naughty view. Oh, here we go.
So
now, as much as we all love to look at the golf bags, that's what we really want to look at.
There we go. Hang on, let me straighten up a little bit.
Look at that. Look,
I think, to be honest, I think your office is pretty cool, to be fair.
Well, tell me this, which everybody will want to know. Where did your passion for cars, before we talk about Ferrari, cars in general, where did your passion for cars start from? Was it from being a young boy? Was it when you started to become successful and could afford these cars?
Well, I think it's really easy. My dad always had secondhand bangers, right? So lots of people can relate to that. Growing up, we wasn't in a fortunate position. Certainly my family wasn't in a fortunate position to be able to go out, buy new cars, buy luxury sports cars. So I remember the old Scirocco's and, the cars that needed brakes, that my dad used to take all the wheels off and bleed the brakes and change all that stuff and getting his hands real dirty because it saved him some money. So, for me as a kid, the sign of success, I certainly looked at that as to, if you can become successful, work really hard, then the opportunity might be that you could reward yourself with, buying something really, really cool. So, my uncle had a pretty decent job and he was the one kind of in the family that was, had the RS 2000, had the Sierra Cosworth with a big tail fin on the back.
Yeah.
Used to take us out, every now and then. And as kids in the back, he would put his foot down and you hear the turbos whistling. And as a kid, you start to giggle. So, that really was, for me as an early age, like, wow, how cool would this be one day to own a fast car? And then was like, one day I really want, at some stage to be able to own a Ferrari because I always looked
What was your poster car? Did you have a poster car growing up?
Well, I had a couple of poster cars, several of which are one of which over your right shoulder, the F40.
Yeah.
I mean, absolute poster car. 288 GTO.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure you've got one rattling around in there somewhere.
We've got one somewhere.
Just over there, over your left shoulder. And the other one, McLaren F1. For me, that was always like, wow, They are iconic cars. You know, they mean something. Very special in the world of supercars. And you know, back then it was just a dream, right? The only thing I could afford was a 50p poster.
Now, I do remember. I mean, we go back, which a lot of people watching this will probably realise that we're obviously very close friends, and we go back a long way, 20 years or so.
Means we old, Tom.
Yeah, it does. We knew each other when we were young men. I'm now middle-aged, and you're now old as from today. But the first car you ever purchased from me was an Aston Martin, actually, not a Ferrari, which was a DB9 when they very first came out. And I remember you went through that stage of wanting to be James Bond. And I recall you winning Valderrama. Was it called the Volvo Masters back then?
Masters 2004.
And I remember you straight after that treating yourself and buying the DB9, which at the time was a new model car, the latest and greatest, and everybody wanted one. And did you own a Ferrari? I think you owned a Ferrari before that, didn't you? Was it a 360?
Yeah. So the funny thing with that was, right, I was like, right, I've got my European tour card. Let's go and like earn loads of money and let's try and have a load of cars. So I won the Italian Open first, and I think I won like 58 million lira or whatever it was at the time.
Sounds like a lot of money.
Sounds like a lot, but it was a lot. It was a lot of money back then. But by the time you pay your caddy, by the time you pay all your bits and pieces and tax, it left me about 20 grand, which, as you know, does not buy yourself a nice Ferrari, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, damn. Anyway, I realigned my priorities.
It doesn't even buy you carbon wheels for a Ferrari these days.
No, it doesn't. So I realigned my priorities. We went out the following season. We had a good year. We bought a new house, which I have to say is the right way of doing it first.
Yes.
The roof over your head. Then it's time to look at the other toys. We won the Moroccan Open in 2001. Now, it wasn't a big European Tour event at the time. That check didn't buy me a Ferrari either. So when I won my second Italian Open in 2002, that was really the point there where I said, look, okay, enough's enough. 2 Italian Opens, it's an omen. Like, I need to go out. And literally the following day, once I got back, I went out and bought a 360.
Yeah. And you enjoyed that car?
I did enjoy the car until about 2 weeks after I had it. Someone decided the golf car park to cut in front of the car and actually scrape and crack the front bumper. So I was absolutely heartbroken.
Yeah, that's not good. That's not a nice feeling. I've had similar things happen. But and where's the passion for Ferrari then? Because everybody knows that you are these days, Mr. Ferrari of Orlando, and you love all of their latest and greatest cars. Plus, your passion, I can testify, goes back, right to the very early Ferraris. And what is it about Ferrari? Is it the idea of that they feel a success symbol, or is it the idea of the cars themselves? Why them and not Porsche or Aston Martin or Lamborghini?
But it's exactly that. As a kid, when I was growing up, I always looked at every time I would pass a Ferrari, or every time I would see one, I would be completely transfixed in it. And because of that, and because I saw that as a level of success symbol, I guess, I just kind of gravitated to that way. So rather than the Porsches and McLarens, even though the McLaren F1 was on my wall as a poster, it was just a bit more of the history, the heritage. I found the brand really cool.
For me, there's no other. There's the collector car market, and we specialize in everything. There's the classic car market, and then there's the Ferrari market. It's completely different. It stands on its own. And a couple of events that we've done together, which is the 288 GTO Tour we had back in 2019, and then this year the 275 Tour. I don't know about you, but when you uh, when all those cars were assembled together, and even the passion that all of the owners and drivers of those cars had, you couldn't get that on a Porsche at all. Like watching, 2275s driving through the Tuscan hills compared to watching 20, Porsche 991s or 930s or 356s or something. It's not the same. The sound of those V12 engine, that Colombo with nothing was like it.
The two tours we've done, and like I think about the little towns that we've driven through and the areas where we've parked to have, lunch or a coffee, or the people in and around those little cute towns, right?
And how they was inspired by the cars.
They like, even the other drivers that are driving other cars start honking horns,
That's Ferrari, though. You don't get that with anything else. You don't get that with Bugatti. It's the passion for Ferraris. Also driving them in Italy probably, helped a little bit more as well.
It was like I hadn't experienced anything like that before. From a collective group of cars that were able to cause that much kind of excitement and buzz. When we parked in the town square, when we did, we had 18 cars lined up in the square, and there was a couple hundred people, I would say, within that square that just. They all come and swarmed around the cars,
they gravitated to the cars. But show us, share. Do you mind sharing with the viewers some of your collection? Then let's have a look at some of the cars and the stories behind them. Obviously, I know a lot of the stories behind them, but most people watching here won't.
On my desk here is the 275 Tour, which we just spoke about, and there's our lovely ladies. Here's our cars in the actual square itself.
Yeah.
There's the 275, and there's all the cars laid out in the square. And then by the time we come back from lunch, hundreds of people around the cars. It was incredible. And then through some of the mountains.
That was at the Ritchie house, at Stefano Ritchie
house, which was absolutely sensational. The other thing on the desk, which obviously quite proud, there's our 288.
Yes.
Or there's our little kind of our guidebook of the route that we was taking when we did the tour.
Yeah. And we need to decide what the next model is, actually, because we're going to stick with dedicated model tours again, and we need to decide, is it going to be a F40 like we've talked about, or what's going to be the next one? I like your Schumacher suit. Looks cool.
Well, look, being a Ferrari fan, being somebody who has the passion to enjoy, I don't think there's any museum collection or collector that shouldn't have Mr. Schumacher himself.
Yeah.
And there's his boots. Got a set of Schumacher boots. Right, let's take you out and what do you want to have a look at, Tom? What do you want to see?
Let's have a look. Let's have a look what you've got, and let's see where we start.
Okay. Well, one of the first.
Give us a little taste. Give us a pan of the man cave.
Okay.
LaFerrari Aperta.
LaFerrari Aperta. Now,
where is your LaFerrari coupe gone?
LaFerrari coupe that normally sits here is just having a low voltage battery change. That is being switched.
Is that under warranty, or is that?
Oh, that's not under warranty. So the low voltage battery, which is the smaller of the two batteries, you don't want the big battery to go.
We've experienced both.
Is being switched out now. To say that's not expensive, it is still extremely expensive and needs fixing, and that is being fixed as we speak. So I'm I'm
Can
hoping.
can I give you some advice? I'm sure you know about the warranty, but take the extra warranty out now, the two which Ferrari have introduced. And I have to say that all these hybrid cars scare me to death, P1s and the 918s and the LaFerraris, because when the high voltage battery goes, they're super expensive to fix. But Ferrari have been really clever, and they've introduced this 2-year warranty that costs you about £16,000, £17,000, which also includes 2 services. And for that, it's a no-brainer.
Had I have had that intel,
Yeah.
I would have taken that extra policy out, which I didn't at the time, so I'm going to, because it would have saved me. And if it happens again, I can tell you that the smaller battery is more expensive than what you've just said, and it would have saved money. So, you know,
I think we probably told you, but it was one of those times that you just didn't listen, as per usual.
I was probably on the 5th tee in some important.
Anyway, so the spec of your LaFerrari coupe, I know, is red, and you've got the alligator touches to the interior, which is a shame that we couldn't share with the viewers. But that was it's a very cool spec car. Do you remember, actually, we went to the launch of the LaFerraris together in Pebble Beach, which was like 2000 and what would that have been, 12 probably?
2000, and I think it was showcased about 12 or 13, because the first car got launched in 15.
Well, no, the first cars got delivered actually like early 14, late 13. So that's why I think it might have been 2012. We went to that private house in Pebble Beach, and
I got my coupe arrived early 2015. That's why I was thinking 15.
And the spec behind the aperture, so that's black, black interior.
It was the spec behind the aperture is real simple. It's exactly the opposite to how I did the coupe. So this having the black interior, black exterior. The one thing that I did add, which I'm really glad about, was
the carbon roof. Yeah, and you are starting to use these cars a little bit more now, aren't you? Because you went first. Am I right in thinking that for the first few years you'd done like 0 miles in both of them?
Look, I didn't do a lot of miles, but like I am getting to stretch their legs a little bit more. You know, the fact of owning these cars for me is like I kind of not that I want to protect them, but it's like I love them so much that I really cherish what they are. But in terms of the enjoyment factor, I bought them to enjoy them, and I should go and enjoy them. And I don't think for the first few years of owning quite a few of these cars, I did that, right? I just wanted to, I just wanted to keep them absolutely perfect. Not to say they're still not perfect today, but like driving them is something you should do, right?
No, you get them out and enjoy them. That's what they're about. I love using my cars, and I love getting them on the road and taking the kids in them, actually, because I think it always concerns me with the hybrid world and the electric world that, you know, younger generations don't appreciate or get to enjoy the, you know, the V12 engine, the V8, V10s, and the normally traditionally aspirated cars, and the pleasure that they bring to get out and enjoy the cars and you know, and share it with others.
Now, there's some myths, because I always get asked all the time on social media, you know, you bought these cars, you should drive these cars. Why don't you drive them? They have to be driven. You know, what is my question to you is like, what is the minimum that you should drive these cars? Because every year I send my cars in to have the fluids checked, the oils checked, and even if I do,
I think it's more important for the health of the car. It's more important to start them regularly. So, you know, we work by a rule of thumb of trying to start the cars up once a month, run them up to temperature, and that's on every car from all different generations. And I think it's good to get out and use and enjoy the cars, but at the same time, not to contradict myself, I can get as much pleasure out of ownership. So, you know, I have some cars that some of my Formula One cars, and, you know, even actually the F40 I've got, I never, ever drive the F40 really, where I'll drive the 288 GTO more. Um, but I like the idea of owning the F40 because I know I own something that's particularly special, and I don't need to have to showcase it to the world. But I am a bit of a car pervert, as you know, and I'll come in here and I'll sit in here of a night time. People are going to think I'm really weird when I say this, but I'll go and sit in the F40, and it might be 10 o'clock of the evening, 10:30, won't even need to start it up, but I'll just walk around it, maybe with a Corona in my hand. I'll just look at it and I'll think, yeah, I know how good that is. And
if the F40's got a distinctive smell, as
yeah,
does the 288 GTO.
yeah,
And when I owned an F40, which I bought many years ago, and we got rid of it, but we might touch on that. But the leather inside the 288 GTO, the smell of the originality of the old 80s leather,
yeah,
is really, really, really unique, as is the smell inside an F40, because there's no leather inside.
yeah.
It's so different. There's such a contrast between the two. Like my kids come in and they always open the door of the GTO and they go, "Oh, it just smells amazing." And that's a 10-year-old kid today that that enjoys that kind of that real beautiful old rich.
It's an older generation of cars. It's one of the it's one of the nice points about an older car, really. Show it. Where is your GTO? There she is. Oh, by the Enzo and by the 275. Now this GTO as well. This is the second GTO that you've had, which some people are not fortunate enough to have one 288 GTO in their life, but you've had two, and the two cars that you've had, I'm even going to share with everyone, are just phenomenal cars. Like the first car that we sold you, if you remember, was a one owner from new. Chassis, I even remember 52465. That was a phenomenal car. And then this other one came up, which was, how many miles is on this now?
Well, it's in kilometers. There's the engine bay. There's how clean and pristine.
I mean, the condition of that car is fantastic, but it's super low mileage, isn't it? It's, what is it?
Low mileage. It's got about, well, I can tell you, I really didn't drive it a lot, did I? Because
apart from the tour, we must have done 6 or 7 miles on the tour. So what is that? 4,000 kilometers. Yeah.
4,600 kilometers, which if you convert that into miles, is 3,500 miles, just under 3,500 miles. Which, how many GTOs in existence would be under 3,500 miles? Not very many, I would imagine.
No, that particular car as well has got a great history. That's a very, very, very good car. But I want to go to the 275 to the left-hand side of it, actually, because your 4Cam, do you mind sharing with everyone the purchase process? I'm sure you remember, because I definitely remember, of when you bought that car from me, which must have been about 2013, would it have been?
It was before then.
No, it couldn't have been. It must have been 12 or 13.
It was about 12.
Yeah.
And I remember I kind of got to...
Would have been 12. So, I mean, obviously what a lot of people on here don't realize is that we might chat about 9 times a week. And if you remember, on that particular car, I had bought it on the west coast of America and was telling you about it. And at the time, you and I had never really chatted that much about 275 before, had we?
No, I think that was the time where I got to number 5 in the world by 2010. And all of a sudden, by doing that, you have an influx of money. I just bought a new house here in Orlando. We just built it with a bigger garage. I then had to add car lifts because I'd outgrown the garage situation that I was in, and we was filling up the garage pretty quick. So we'd bought the Enzo, which you helped, and that car came from New York.
Yeah.
Which is just over there. So that was pretty much, you know, me, that was the.
If you look at that, what a clever buy that was now when you think about how much they've gone up on price. But, you know, exactly. Hindsight thing.
I mean, I paid 1.4 for the car, which seems cheap today, right? I mean, in the current world of Benzos today,
that was a good buy. But the 275, I think this is if you share it with everyone, it's an inspirational story, really.
So I was in Turkey, and obviously the time difference in Turkey to the UK, and I was laying in my bed. I remember our conversation because you're like, oh, I've just bought the most phenomenal 275. The history file's incredible. It's got all of the receipts from the day it originated. It's just it comes with everything. This car is so original, so perfect, and it's amazing. And as we always talk about cars the way we do, and you know, you discuss the cars that you're going to look at and you've purchased and the ones you've sold. I remember your excitement for the car was brilliant. So I said, how much do you want for the car? You kind of threw a number out there. And I said, can you give me 3 weeks? And you was like, well, what for? I said, would you give me 3 weeks? Because I really fancy the car. And it was quite funny because you went, no, I haven't told you about the car to sell you the car. Like I'm just sharing that I've bought an amazing car. I said, yeah, I know, and I like it. So
that was the most confident. That was the most confident stretch I feel like I've lived through your career with you, but that was the most confident stretch I can ever remember you being on, though, because I remember that phone call, you saying, I think I'm going to play really well these next few weeks. And they were they big purses, those tournaments? They must have been big purses.
It was the end of the year, and I remember 3 tournaments in a row. It was Turkey, finishing off in Dubai for the race to Dubai. And I think I finished top 5 in all 3. I finished runner-up in the race to Dubai. I had this spell of shooting, you know, I think I averaged 67 a day for that closing stretch. And
you gave yourself a target that you wanted to make enough money in those 3 weeks to basically pay for the 275.
I did, and it was actually a really fun challenge. So it was nice. It was kind of like this goal to turn around and say, right, how much do you want for the car? Yeah. How much do I think I can earn in these 3 tournaments?
Yeah,
be able to give me the opportunity to buy this really cool car. Because listen, it wasn't an affordable car. You know, a 275 today is
lots of money.
Still expensive back then. But I gave myself that challenge, the target, the goal to buy the car, and we did it. And it was actually a really cool 3 weeks to.
Actually, that's about the least amount of we ever communicated in those 3 weeks, because it just seemed like you were super focused. And I remember you texting after the first week saying, right, week one went as planned, and a little tick.
Lost in the playoff.
Yeah,
I lost one.
Yeah, the mistake I made is I should have quoted you an extra couple of 100,000. We could have charged you an extra couple of 100,000 more, and you'd have forced yourself to have won the playoff instead of coming second.
I remember Brooks Koepka beat me in the playoff in that week. I was fuming, furious. But here is the 275.
Yeah.
And what's nice about this car is the originality. I think that, you know, the history file speaks for itself. But when we bought the car, you'll remember that it was yellow.
Yeah, it was a very original car, but you wanted it. You wanted it totally restored.
I wanted it totally restored because I fell in love with the history file and the fact that the car was silver. It originated as silver. It then went to Burgundy. like a real deep Bordeaux burgundy color. And then I think in the 80s or late 80s, it turned itself to yellow. And, you know, I really loved what the silver and black looked like. And I'd always enjoyed, you know, looking at these cars in silver and black. And I think you've actually got a silver. I think you've got a silver one.
We've got a silver right-hand drive one. Let me see if I can flip it over and show you. One sec.
There you go.
Which is this similar car. Actually, this car's a super original car. This car is, which was one owner for basically 40 years. It's interesting if you see the interior. Yours is leather interior, and this has got the cloth inserts.
Yeah. So it's actually the same seat, but the interior section of that seat is cloth, and this one being leather. But like, you know, the enjoyment of sending this car away to be restored was quite an interesting process, and actually going to visit the restoration process and how
also,
they
we done the restoration with Motion Products, who are the best company really for that car in the US. Yep. And they're bloody not cheap, but they do a great job, don't they?
No, they are not cheap in any way. Cheap is the wrong word. But no,
they do a great job. To be fair, when you look at it now, you know, the quality remains after I suppose the price was forgotten. Like, they really did do a good job of that car.
I mean, the engine bay is that, you know, is you could eat your.
And you've also shown that car at Cavallino, so you've gone through. You're not just an owner, a collector who buys a car and keeps it to yourself. I remember you sent that car to Cavallino even when you were playing in the golf tournament, because you wanted it to go there, and you wanted to see how the car performed. Correct. As in how it performed against other competition out there, and how it stood after its restoration. I think how did it get on?
It was
Platino, wasn't it?
Platino, which is great. So that in itself, I think, speaks for the quality of the restoration that the work that got done, and how well it showcased itself. So to have a car that has that award after restoration is pretty special.
Let's see what else you've got then.
I was going to ask you a question about, now this being the 275 GTB4, what is the difference? You have, I think you've got a competizione car.
Yes, that's right.
Which is pretty special. And so how many variants would there have been that were competizione? What is the difference between the different variants of a 275? Because it's not just one or two. There's actually several, right?
Well, I mean, you can have a 275 GTS.
Yeah.
So they've done two different 275 open top variants, one being a 275 GTS and the other car being a 275 Nart Spider. And Nart Spider is basically your 4-cam, 10 of them with the roof chopped off. And they literally did just chop the roofs off them because Luigi Cignetti thought that a convertible car would sell particularly well in the North American market. But then you can have a 2-cam, which is 2 camshafts with either 3 carburetors or 6 carburetors, or the top of the tree for road cars would be a 4-cam, which is what you've got, which is 4 camshafts with 6 carburetors from new, all standard with 6 carburetor. Or then you can have a competizione car. So a competizione car, they only built something like 12 cars, and these cars are so different. It's just disappointing and a shame that the aesthetics, the exterior of the car, they didn't spice up more, because it just looks like a standard 2-cam. If anything, your 4-cam probably, because of the bulge in the body, actually looks sportier than this car until you actually get under the skin. And when you get under the skin of these cars, like the bodywork, the thin gauge aluminium is so thin that just by pushing the car, you will dent it. Lifting the bonnet up, it's just wafer thin. Everything is drilled for lightness. You know, you look at the trumpets on these cars that were all standard with this. This engine is much more like a 250 LM than a 275 2 or 4 cam. And to drive the cars, you know, much more horsepower, much lighter. They were like, you could refer to them as a Series 3 250 GTO. Very, very, very special car. If they actually looked more aggressive, sportier, racy, I think these cars would be at least twice the price. You see the outside.
Exterior fuel cap?
No exterior fuel cap, actually. So on the short nose, some people call a short nose 275 competizione car the 7000 series cars, but Ferrari themselves never referred to those cars as competiziones. They just referred to them as a, you know, they were just an alloy bodied 6 carburetor with the outside fuel filler, which is here, and the GTO style vents in the rear. But you know, those cars mechanically are nothing like these cars. But if anything, the short nose cars look a little bit sportier than the long nose competition cars.
Yeah, this is, I mean, I have to say, this is one of my like pride and joys, I would say, from the story of buying the car from you, and kind of what it meant to me to go and play golf. Ooh, now with your DB, look at those beauties.
So DB4 GT, DB5, but you are more Ferrari. I mean, show us what else you've got. Loads more in there. So I know. Don't just show us a 288 GTO and ends up a Ferrari.
I was gonna show the folks. Here's something very, very interesting, which I think is a credit to probably you and your team. And I touched on it briefly about the history. So here's something which I find quite fascinating. So I have a folder over here on the shelf. You can see over there that I've got all of the folders stacked up, which
all your history files.
All the history files. So, you know, the fact of the originality of the car. Here's a copy of the Classic A documents in the car. Original posters from back in the day, that all came with the car when it was purchased.
You know, we spend so much time actually on putting history files together for each car, scanning, copying. But, you know, some people are not interested in them. Some people actually don't even know where the history file is, don't know where they put them. And it's really nice that you still keep all the history files so much to hand and actually look through them and understand your cars and understand the history of your cars, rather than just buy them, park them up and kind of forget about everything that's so important. Yeah, I remember all those invoices.
Yeah, I just, you know, that's all, you know, that was the servicing that got done from Patrick Otis back in the day. But for me, is, you know, that's part of the fun of buying these cars, is making sure that you collect all of the history of the car, like you do, and you collate all of that, put them into binders for people that buy the cars. But not only is it cool to own the car, but to be able then to go back in and have a look and research and, you know, really kind of get a bit more of an understanding of what comes with that car. You don't get that today with a modern supercar, because you purchase it, it comes naturally. Some of the cars come with a Classic A certification. But the fun stuff is when you put one of the old Ferraris in for Classic A, Ferrari go in, they take pictures of all the aspects of the car to make sure it's original. And then it goes through the process of being signed off. And once it's been approved, and they can actually certify that the car, all of the parts are original, you then get that wonderful red folder.
And let's have a look what else is behind you. I'm very nosy, as you can tell.
So I remember the 275. We bought the Testarossa at exactly the same time.
Super low mileage, thousand miles or something from new.
Super low mileage. Actually has 805 miles.
Yeah.
So I think if we have a look in there, you might be able to see 805 or 806. I took it out the other day. I did a mile in it. I stretched its legs.
And do you like the Testarossa? That's the one car. Have you? What do you?
It's a hard drive. I think it's a hard drive. The seating position's a little different. It's quite heavy on the steering.
Feel a little bit they're a bit archaic, aren't they, today to drive? If in many ways it feels an older car than the 275.
It feels super heavy.
Yeah.
Super heavy car compared to some of the cars today.
We're doing the Testarossas a lot of justice, aren't we? There's going to be a lot of people queuing up for them after this.
550 Barchetta.
I love the 550 Barchetta. I've just bought a right-hand drive one owner from new, done 1,000 miles. And I tell you, you know how much I love those cars. I think those cars are a real sleeper, so undervalued. And I think in years to come, they're going to be super valuable.
Yeah, great car. I remember buying this a number of years ago. This one has done 1,259 miles.
Yeah.
I
love your TDF. Actually, I love the color of the TDF
over there. One of the things I was say, which actually is a bugbear of mine, and I know that
sticky.
I'm going to show you the sticky.
That era Ferrari, but you can fix it. It costs a few thousand.
You can see where you touch it; it leaves the fingerprints in the sticky.
And then it's black all over your hands and your clothes. But no, that can get fixed though. It's just the material that breaks down. But your 458 Speciale, you were actually, I have to say, for a bloody professional golfer who there's been longer standing Ferrari collectors than you. You have been a bit of a trendsetter with. If it's not your Ferrari FF that I don't see in the background there, which I think from memory was the first ever tailor-made Ferrari, and then through their tailor-made program, and then you've done this 458 Speciale, and I remember you telling me about it, and I was going, that is disgusting. That is the worst spec car. And then when I saw it in the flesh, I said, oh my God, it looks fantastic with the Italian colours. And then since then, I've noticed about 150 people copy off you and order the exact same spec.
It's really interesting. Because look, I remember
you have been a bit of a trendsetter, actually. Not just on the golf course, but in the Ferrari world.
That was our trip to one of our trips to Pebble Beach, which I'm super proud of. That the first tailor-made FF. For the first tailor-made car to be actually built, really, and we went all out with tartan interior. In fact, it's the same tartan interior as that I've had wrapped all around the wall in the museum. So yeah, we did this crazy tartan roof headliner, tartan through this, which was really cool. And then I kind of was like, right, 458 Speciale, like, what am I going to do with a car? And decided to go all out Italian. So, the accents really, on all of the carbon fiber, the little side splitter, the vents, the engine vents at the back.
I have to say, I thought you got it absolutely wrong. I would have never expected like it. And it works so perfect. And yeah, I think it's a really, really, really good looking car.
Yeah, it was fun to do. I was a bit nervous because you were like, I can't believe you've done that.
I was wrong. I was completely against it. But show us the F12 TDF as well. That was a very individual spec car. Like, you do know how to tick the optional extras when it comes to ordering new Ferraris. That's why they love you so much, actually. I think they built a new wing out of at Maranello of all the extras, all the money you spent on extras. Look at this red carbon.
red carbon. The red carbon, like I've never really went when we went into the factory. I'd never really seen too much red carbon.
Yeah.
On Ferrari, so I was like, do you know what? I think it'd be really cool to kind of add that red accent. And I don't know if you can see on the actual lip of the. You can see on the lip of the wheel.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
It brings the red in, the red carbon fiber hubcap, and then all of the accents inside, which was actually really nice to kind of go through that design process with all the different layers of material that you've got in the options with TaylorMade to be able to spec the car exactly. And it was, again, I remember speccing it, and I called you and I'm like, Tom, I've just spec'd this amazing TDF. And you was like, what color is it? I said, matte blue. And you went, oh. And then I said, it's got red carbon fiber. And you went, oh.
Yeah. Again, I thought you messed up on that one, but that's why I look. I'm a very conservative guy. I wear blue jumpers, blue shirts, and blue jeans. And we've all saw your trousers before, so
everyone knows
more imagination than I have.
Everyone knows I'm a little eccentric, so this was like pushing the boundary. The red, the matte blue. I like I tell you what I love. I love the racing stripe on this.
Yeah,
it was kind of like a bespokey kind of.
So you've now really been seriously buying the best cars in the world for 20 years, give or take 20 years. I suppose a few questions that I would like to ask you, and I'm sure the viewers would, what's been the highlight of the cars that you've purchased? Of all the cars you've bought, what's your favorite car?
I don't know. I can't. People ask that question quite a bit. I don't know if I've got a favorite car in the collection.
Okay, there's a fire tomorrow that's happening at the house, and you need to save. You can only save one car. I mean, actually, I knowing you'll probably just quickly work out what the most valuable car is, and then you'll just save that one. So actually, that's an unfair analogy to try and use. But what's the car that you wouldn't sell? If I came to you and said, look, we're selling this car, I want you to sell it. Which is the one that you just be like, please don't talk to me about that one?
The 275. The 275 to me is has been a special car. From that era of Ferrari to own something that I think is a really special, beautiful looking car. I'm keeping it. It's the old honky horn. It's the old steering wheel that you remember seeing from so many pictures back in the day. It drives absolutely incredible. As we went on our trip and enjoyed it with 18 other couples. So as cool as the new modern supercars are, and as fast as the LaFerrari is, and the old cars do something for me, and I think that's for me where the extra kind of passion, which you have, which is probably some of the cool stories that you've told me about some of the history files with some of these cars. The old stuff just amazes me, and I've got a couple of questions for you on your side, because I remember when you delivered a car to a fellow golfer back in the day when you was 20 years ago. So how old was you then?
20 years ago, I was 19. So at my peak.
This little baby-faced, skinny kid.
I was just about shaving then, if I remember rightly.
This little skinny kid pitches up outside my house and delivers a car during a tournament week to another golfer. Was it an SL 500?
I think an SL 500, yeah.
SL 500 blue with it was blue exterior with can't remember the color interior. I was like, who is this kid? Who is this kid who's just dropped off this really expensive car? Anyway, it was you, and I think in that 20 years,
The bromance started then.
The bromance, we spoke about eight times a day since, but I think the fun thing for me is like your knowledge of cars is really interesting, because it's been your lifelong career in priding yourself on being able to buy the best cars in the world.
Well, like I've always said to you, actually, that you should only ever buy. It doesn't mean you only buy the most valuable cars in the world, but you should only try and buy the best of anything. So your Testarossa that's done 800 miles from new, it's all original paint, all original interior. And if you find yourself that your collection consists of 5 cars or 50 cars, if you can boastfully say, I've always bought the best of their, I was able to buy the best of their type, no excuse cars, it will reward you so much better over the years.
Yeah. Well, listen, I bought my F40 myself, mistakenly, quite a few years ago, because I didn't really consult you on the car, unlike all of the other cars that are sitting inside the and it turned out to be not really the best F40 that I could have bought at the time. So you know, we sold the car. I'm now probably looking, and you need to turn away from that F40 that's sitting behind you. Is grabbing my attention. At some stage, we need to replace the F40 that's gone from the collection. But you know,
after you saying that, you're probably going to have so many private messages now coming in from every Mickey Mouse broker in the world. Hey Ian, I can fix you up with an F40. But anyway, you were going on. Your question.
You know what, like how have you been able to gain the knowledge because you're still young, right? Look at you,
I'm very young.
Right? You know, when you look at some of the other people around the world that sell these classic cars, they're generally later on in life, right? But you've amassed a wealth of knowledge on these cars. So like how did that become such a big passion, and how have you been able to do that so quickly?
I'd say from a few things really, where you know that maybe not every other viewer does, but I live and breathe the cars. I love the cars. You know, I'm the most fortunate guy in the world where my hobby is my business and my business is my hobby. And the likes of an F40, you know, I've always crawled all over them. I crawl all over every car, and I love to know the little details. I've got, you know, a decent memory, and I look at things and go, oh, what do those numbers mean? And then you suddenly, over the years, and on the next car, you look for the same numbers and you work out and go, oh, so there's numbers here and there's numbers there, and that's kind of how you build your knowledge up. And then the other thing I would say to you, which is a real fast way of learning, a brutal way of learning, is, you know, my business model is about buying our inventory and then looking at reselling it. And, you know, when you're just brokering something, and unfortunately, I think there's a lot of brokers in the car business that give the industry not a great name. You know, they always describe things as, oh, it's the best of its type and it's fantastic. And they never even look at the car because they're earning their 5 or 10% commission, and they just want to get the 5 or 10% commission and move on to the next deal. But when you physically got to buy something with your own money, you are a lot more diligent. And it's amazing how quickly you can amass your knowledge by, if you make a mistake and you go, I'm not bloody making that mistake again. And, you know, it's like you learned that the harder way on your F40. You know, you only sold your F40 because when we looked over it, we discovered it wasn't as good a car as the rest of the cars in your collection. Like your everything else, your GTO is bulletproof, your Enzo, your everything you've got, your 275, everything. You know, now when you're buying another F40, yes, we'll help you with the F40 and we'll get you the right car. But at the same time, you're more knowledgeable yourself just after buying one car, making your mistake by buying a car that wasn't as good as you wanted it to be. So you now know what to look for. So if you times that with the amount of cars that we buy or sell, it's amazing how quickly you amass your knowledge. Suddenly, we might have DB4 GT that I'm stood next to. We might have had now maybe, we might have bought or sold something like more than 15 of those cars, and they only built 75. So if we don't know what we're talking about now with DB4 GTs, then God help the rest of everyone else. But
not easy, right? Not in the world of cars. If you think how many collectible cars there are in the world, across all of the different brands, it's very hard as a buyer or a collector of cars to be able to have the knowledge yourself to just go and buy that car, whether you see it at auction or whether it's coming up as private, but that is one of the reasons why you have to have a level of trust to make sure.
Also, I would say to you, I'm not the only person in the world who's able to do it, but you should always try and have an expert to help you.
Yeah.
Like if I know nothing about art, like I can afford to go and buy some art tomorrow, but I don't have the confidence in myself, and I would be irresponsible to go to any auction tomorrow, to go to a Sotheby's auction and put my hand up and buy a painting for £1 million. I don't know what I'm buying. Is it fake? Is it? I've got no idea. So surely it's for me. I'd rather have somebody on my side who's supposed to know what they're on about and help me along the way. But what advice would you give to any people out there that are starting to think of getting into the car collecting world? From your experience, what advice would you leave people with?
Well, if you befriend someone like Tom Hartley Jr., you can end up a lot of money.
So avoid that, because that'll become expensive.
No, look, you've done an incredible job through the years. When I look at all the cars that you've sold collectively, I mean, it's astounding, right? When that's why you've been as successful as you have, and that's why you have a fleet of cars behind you that you're selling, is the diligent job that you do and you've done through the years to make sure you have the best cars, you can sell the best cars, your customers come back to you because they trust you in what you do, and your knowledge is key. And it's powerful to be able to have someone like yourself that you can trust when you're spending, whether it be 100,000 or whether it be 50 million, right? You have to be able to gain the trust in somebody to be able to go and source a car for you, find the right car. And some of these cars that come up in the world, there aren't many of them, right? And it's not easy to be able to just go and purchase these cars. So having someone that can buy the car for you, can sell you the right car, can even sell, if you need to sell a car quick, like our F50, which is a funny story, and we're probably burning through time, but the F50, I had several cars that were coming in one on top of the other when the LaFerrari.
You did go through a period where I think Ferrari would just actually had a transporter that was dedicated to you, and it was just constantly going from the dealership straight to the house every day, just delivering new cars.
It was an interesting couple of years, which, look, it's great, right? I mean, it's been such a great passion of mine to be able, and I'm lucky to have the opportunity to buy those cars. But yet, like the F50, we had all those supercars coming in real quick, and at the time I didn't have that much cash. So, to phone you and say, Tom, I need to get rid of the F50. Can we come to a deal on the F50? And absolutely. The deal was done instantaneously. The car was sold. It freed me up nicely. And again, the knowledge I have to be able to, the knowledge the knowledge to be able to then, find an end user very, very quickly from your, collection of knowledge.
That car also went to a great home afterwards, didn't it? And, I remember afterwards it went to a really good home. And then I think, probably wouldn't do it with many people, but I think I remember buying it off you for one price, and then we sold it. And then I think I remember paying you a decent bit more afterwards, you could say. But
yeah, you done me proud on the car. I think it fetched world record money.
But I tell you what, in hindsight, we both somehow should have kept it, because look what's happened with F50s. But anyway, who would have known? Who would have known? But you're still as passionate about cars as you've ever been, though.
Yeah, look, Tom, we talk about cars so often, and I can't at the minute, even as fortunate as I am within golf still today, earning great money, like I probably can't tick every single box that I'd love to tick in my collecting, wish list.
But isn't that great though? Isn't it? If you have a bottomless pot of money that you can just go and buy whatever you want, like there's not the same satisfaction as having to do what you've done with the 275 and saying, I really want a 275 and I've got to go out there and I've got to earn enough money. And how many people can go and earn enough money in bloody 3 weeks to pay for a 275 4-cam? So you just had a real purple patch there. But, you imagine it would be a boring life, I think, if it was that easy and just go, I'm just going to buy what I want. Oh, I want another one of those and I'll just go and get it. So, I think more people watching this can relate to, your story, which for me has been fabulous to live with you and to live through it. And, watch you hold Ryder Cup winning putts and then, see you suddenly go, you know what, Tom, I now really want to get an F50. And I remember when we went to Arizona to buy that F50, you came along with me purely to hold my hand and support and watch the auctions that week before you played in Phoenix for that big golf tournament. And then you were at the auctions like, you know what, that F50, I really think I need that F50 in my life. I just can't afford it at the minute. And then you was like, how can I suddenly
really
make that work? And then we ended up, getting the F50. You were only supposed to be there to spectate, and you bought an F50. And I think that week I bought nothing. So, and then so along the way we've had a lot of fun on car events, and that's why I've enjoyed our tours so much. But I think it's been really good to watch you have goals and be able to achieve your goals and treat yourself to the cars that have always been dreams to you, really.
It's great to have like the incentives, right? It's great to set goals. It's great to turn around and say to yourself, right, what's kind of on my wish list, and if we reach a certain milestone in achievement, then go and reward yourself. And we haven't flippantly bought a load of these cars just because they've been kind of goals through the years to say I'd love to build this type of collection, as we've burnt hours and hours and hours poring over certain cars. But it's a great passion. It's a wonderful hobby. We get the opportunity to share it with friends and family, which I think is really important.
And look how many great people. I mean, I can testify to how many great people I've met through the car world, but that's my business. But you as a collector, how many great people have you met through the car world? Because I know how many people you've been introduced to through the car world, and you wouldn't get that through other things.
Oh, and eclectic people that are as well. In all, they're not all sports people, business people. Really kind of amazing people. Have been on our tour that we've met, through various different kind of car events, Pebble Beach, whether it's Cavallino, whether it's, just so many great people. And I think the car world, the thing for me is, if you're a car fan, then it doesn't matter if it's a Ford RS 2000, or if it's a Porsche, or if it doesn't matter the value of the car. If you're a petrol head, you're a petrol head. And I think that's one of the wonderful things that I think is nice. You know, when you go to just any car meet, whether it's a Cars and a Coffee, people that love their Subaru,
just like-minded car people who are not pretentious, and people that basically, you know, there's some people that we've had on the tours who have got, you know, tens of billions that, you know, we'll never be able to even dream of having, but we're all driving the same car together and we're all enjoying it together, and we're all sat down having dinner together of an evening time.
Of my XR2i that I bought many years ago, that cost me £1,200. I love the car as much as I love the cars that I have here, because it was a big milestone for me back in the day to buy something that I could, you know, I could just about afford at the time, and I cherished it. I loved it. I cleaned it. I made sure it was always perfect, and I smashed it up and had to get something a lot cheaper. But you know, that was back in the day. So yeah, I mean,
so three questions before we wrap it up. Favorite car of all time?
It'd be too easy to say 250 GTO, which I drove not that long ago, which a friend of mine gave me the opportunity to. But you know, McLaren F1.
McLaren, yeah. And favorite car event that you've been to?
Pebble Beach.
Yes, it's just a no-brainer, isn't it?
It's absolutely spectacular. It's surrounded by hundreds of the most, you know, iconic cars in the world. Incredible collectors on pretty much one of the best pieces of real estate.
There's just nothing like it, though, is it? I mean, we've also had, you know, we've had some great trips to Pebble Beach together, actually, a few occasions. One that sticks in my mind, regretfully, is our game of golf round Cypress Point, which
we should. That is such a good story. We're going to do a part 2 on this, right? And we're going to tease people into it, because it's a half an hour story that literally it's amazing. We played with one of only a few admirals, yeah. which there isn't many of them. Anyway, that will be another story. That will be part 2 of this, because it is just absolutely spectacular.
Yeah, we've had some great trips to Pebble Beach, but everybody should go to Pebble Beach if you're into cars as a bucket list thing. If you don't go to Pebble Beach, you've literally never experienced, you know, one of the finest points of the hobby, really. And third thing, of all the cars that you've got at the moment, your favorite car to drive?
Favorite car to drive, LaFerrari Aperta.
Yeah.
Roof off, just the pure rawness of power is remarkable. The downforce is remarkable. The fact that you can put nearly 1,000 horsepower on the ground, just blows me away. These modern supercars are very clever.
No, they are indeed. Well,
choose one of the cars behind you. Which, if you had to keep one of all of those back there, what are you keeping?
Well, I absolutely love my Lamborghini Miura. So I think the Miura for me, it's not the greatest car I own. You know, the 288 GTO, the F40, the 275. There's other cars that I probably would beat it to drive and are more historically significant, but I just love the looks of the Miura. You know, it's timeless. It's the first supercar. I particularly love this car, and you know, Charlene loves it. So, you know, that's one of my favorite cars. This car here also is incredibly special. Like, this is the most important DB4 GT on the planet, and probably one of the most important Aston Martin GTs on the planet. of all time, really. That's, you know, it came second at Goodwood to Stirling Moss. The history of that car, that's the type of car that really stimulates me. Cars with history, cars with great provenance. But
and
you know,
the Formula One cars just that is driven by incredible Formula One drivers.
well, that's your mate Jackie's car. So Jackie Stewart, 1970 Spanish Grand Prix winning car. And you know, that's a 6-time Niki Lauda winning car, won the 75 championship, including Monaco. Three-time Damien Hill winner, very famous Adrian Newey. Adrian Newey designed Williams FW15C and then an FW17. But I tell you what, you do need to buy actually for your very impressive man cave. And although you're you are a big Mercedes-Benz Formula One fan, I know that for certain, but you have a few Mercedes-Benz, but only everyday smokers. But you need one of these 1886 Benzes. These cars are so cool. Once you get them up and running to drive, you could be smoking that around Lake Nona. I can see the golf clubs on the passenger seat. And this is where the car world all started from. This one here, actually, we always sell these, as you know. This one is off to Saudi Arabia, and the last one we had went to Dubai. The one before that, Hong Kong. Every car collector in the world has one of these. Every series car collector, and that's what you need in Casa Poulter. So right in the centre.
Next purchase is Tom Hartley.
Maybe for your 50th birthday, which is next year anyway, isn't it?
Hey,
maybe I might treat you. But anyway, look, it's been thank you for being our first guest on our Tom Talks, on this new edition of our Tom Talk series. Hopefully everyone's enjoyed that, and you know, I'm sure we'll get you on again sometime, and we'll have to get you out maybe when you're today we are doing it by Zoom to you in Orlando, but in the summer when you're back in the UK, maybe we'll get you up here and we'll go out in the car and do a series.
Sounds good. Thanks, Tom. I'm going to go and have a champagne on my birthday.
Enjoy your birthday, old boy.
Cheers, Tom. See you, buddy. Take care.
Bye.